Hey everybody, we're back. It's been a while since we did a hangout here, so I thought we'd jump in. Me and Bill were meeting today to do some stuff with the pitch. So I thought I'd jump in and make a live hangout so everybody can kind of see what we're doing. We got to be as transparent as possible. Nothing behind closed doors with this project. So especially important, I think. Just one thing, we're gonna go over. Bill's got a pitch. I watched him do it the other night. It was really cool. Way better than me. I'm definitely not a pitch guy, but hopefully I was able to answer a few questions for the people. They're a local group here in the Impact Hub here, where we have the Gold and Neureal office. The Boom Startup. They're just a local accelerator group, and we see them every day walking down. But they were able to, get a little bit of a taste of what we're doing here in the office, and that was kind of cool. So it was a little introduction for them. So that's kind of what we're doing with the pitch, trying to get it into a condensed way that we can send it out to people that can understand really what we're trying to do, where we're going. They can, answer a few questions. And in a really good way. So that's what Bill is good at. I also want to mention that Brian Sewell is going to put some money in and create a really good video of all the people involved, and like he's done for the Gold project. So if you go to coinbit.gold, coinbit.gold, you can see the Gold project, which is a use case for Neureal, and they're going to be supporting Neureal. So I've been helping promote that. They're on Bank to the Future right now. If you go check it out, it's Gold. It's just called Gold. It should be on the front page. Bank to the Future. So they're doing their crowd. Their pitch right now, and raising money. So hopefully, that'll get going, help out Neureal, get Neureal going as well. So we'll be creating that soon here, hopefully, and we'll have that as another tool. But I want to I'll go ahead and let Bill, do what he wants to do. Whatever that is.
Insert feet into mouth.
Yeah.
So do you want to just share the slide deck? Can you just do a screen share?
I think so.
I can see it while I'm.
Yeah, so where is it at?
I emailed it to you.
Okay, let me pull it up here. Version 1.3. Okay, so do you want me to do it here or just do it in a plane?
Yeah, so
probably download it.
Oh, you do. And then
So it should be good. We might have to, we'll just get it here. Okay. We'll just have to do it here. Is there a full screen thing? Oops. Oops.
so it's got.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. It's not quite full. It's over full.
Over full?
But I think you can adjust it down there.
Okay. How about right there? Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and. Great. I better not click on it. I'll just use the keys.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Or scroll.
Yeah. Do you want to scroll?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So are you sharing the screen right now?
No, I'll do that. Okay. I'll see this sharing. And I'm going to grab that one. Okay. So hopefully everybody can see that. And we'll switch over to this one. All right, so go ahead, Bill.
All right. You
can just use the scroll.
Just the wheel. Okay. Yeah. So, putting it into a nutshell, right? And so far, the working nutshell is of Neureal is an open source peer-to-peer AI supercomputer that's powered on blockchain. Even the tinier nutshell is AI on blockchain, right? So that's the nut of it. And we sort of have this working slogan of anyone can be a seer. I mean, we've been playing with the seer, oracle, whatever image, but the gist is that it is this massive open source distributed supercomputer. And really it consists, so beneath that it's a distributed operating system and blockchain environment. It really creates this infinitely scalable peer-to-peer supercomputer. It's this nugget of code that can be distributed across the internet, run on a bunch of different nodes, and have an integrated incentive engine as part of it through the blockchain. So that this supercomputing environment consists of massive amounts of processing cycles and memory based on it's utterly distributed. But it can be potentially from any resource, whether it's an institutional server, a high-speed gaming computer, a standard personal computer, even a personal tablet or smartphone. You have processing and memory. You have algorithms, and those are procedures or formulas that are designed to solve problems, identify patterns, and make predictions. Ultimately, Neureal is a massive supercomputing prediction engine. But what's it going to be predicting from? You've got to have data. You've got to have lots of data. But Neureal will accommodate data from any source and of any size. Big data friendly. It's the crunching of all kinds of pools or lakes or oceans of big data that can identify predictions, outcomes, patterns that's ultimately of use. But it's an ecosystem where this can occur, and this last point on the page is it's a human and machine-based function that's driving it to create a marketplace, to execute a marketplace for how these algorithms, data, and processing resources are used to create potentially useful outputs. Because it's those outputs that either can go back into the system and be turned into something else, can be sold, can be, it's a marketplace, it's an ecosystem. So, kind of going a little bit further, the distributed computing nodes within the Neureal network connect together to create and exchange value by running these predictions and finding patterns. So, it comes up, well, yes, universities, corporations, governments, individuals are already doing this, but they're doing it on owned or leased supercomputers, which is very expensive. And Neureal is potentially an alternative to that, where it can dramatically reduce supercomputing costs while creating a massive financial ecosystem that incentivizes everyone who participates in it. So creating this ecosystem of interconnected computing resources, having a financial incentive part of it, which will drive the ecosystems get more adoption and be able to crunch more data. So there's different roles within the computing ecosystem, this marketplace. You're going to have owners of data that they're either going to want to sell it or they're going to want to contribute to an ecosystem where if it could be used to distill out predictions or patterns or outcomes, that's a constituent. You have owners of data that need to run predictions and find patterns. So these are organizations, individuals, entities that already have perhaps have access to supercomputing or wish they did. And so they're bringing this data to this supercomputer and saying, we want to try to find these predictions. Here, marketplace, here's this data, help us find it. And hopefully bringing some money to the marketplace to do it. It may be just open source volunteer to begin with. But as there's more and more adoption of processors within the ecosystem, as algorithms are brought in and said, this could be used to predict or show an outcome for something else, then that data then becomes interesting both to the owner of the data as well as the people in the ecosystem. And they negotiate together how they want to come up with an output and hopefully bring some money into the ecosystem. And we'll talk more about that here in a minute, because that incentive can get then distributed to the ecosystem through the blockchain and the cryptocurrencies that's part of it. So another constituents, probably the largest constituents in terms of sheer numbers, are owners of idle CPU and gaming computing resources. So we want to make it an attractive place for, if somebody's got a gaming computer that's sitting idle for half the day, or a large server or some other processor, or even a personal computer, anybody can take some and use some of that idle resource in this ecosystem to crunch this data using the algorithms against the data that gets brought into it. Of course, you have creators of algorithms where they're looking to get some adoption for those algorithms, either to sell them, to give them away, to have them be tested. They can be contributed to this ecosystem as well. And of course, that's a key piece of it. And then entities and individuals who are in the market for prediction and data patterns. That's going to be a big driver of this marketplace. If somebody's looking for particular predictions on whatever it might be, whether it's elections or the weather or sports teams, or whether or not we'll get hit by an asteroid in 100 years, all of those, if somebody's looking for that and they can bring it to this marketplace and say, we're looking for this, can you help us find it? Then that begins to attract the data and the algorithms and the processors to crunch this. So Neureal is open source. The base code of Neureal, it already exists on the Neureal site. As it gets built, it will be built in an open source sort of manner and distributed through the Neureal site in that open source manner. It's peer-to-peer. I've touched on this already a bit, but it is fully centralized. You can have any kinds of processing nodes, contributing nodes on this network that are working together and doing computation. It's fully decentralized, and it's like the internet. It's infinitely expandable. The bigger the environment gets, the bigger and more complex the algorithms and the computing that can be done. It's managed by the blockchain. All the rules and transactions and incentive distribution are transparent and automated through cryptocurrency. So it's cryptocurrency powered. So all that distribution of value happens rapidly at an extremely low cost. And it basically, between blockchain and cryptocurrency, like any of these decentralized ecosystems, it removes the friction of having to transact and move money and verify trust and keep track of transactions. So blockchain and cryptocurrency are key to that. And ultimately, it becomes a distributed autonomous organization. Once this thing's set up, then all the computing can be organized based on what people want, or there can be things that can happen automatically on a computing basis. All the participation is automatically incentivized by sharing the value that comes into the ecosystem by virtue of people paying to have their data processed or looking for particular outputs. And that value distribution is conducted according to the amount of participation that everybody, whether, if you got big computing resources, or if you've got lots of algorithms, or if you're bringing, however, as it is with any DAOs, the return on the contribution is based on the size of the contribution. And that is all governed and distributed through the blockchain and cryptocurrency. That's the beauty of it. So it's a giant computer, giant calculating computer in its own ecosystem that's managed and incented. All the contributing members are incented by virtue of blockchain and cryptocurrency. So the next part of this is taking a look at how at the ecosystem and how the pieces fit together. Now, where I've fallen down here is that this is the diagram that essentially I distributed earlier on the Hangouts, and that's in the Neureal Drive. So there's more of a description here than what's showing on the screen, but let me walk you through it. So essentially, what these elements represent are, this is the Neureal code base or code program. It's the ledger that keeps track of who's contributed what and what the weight of that contribution is. basically logs everyone together. It's the code base. It's also the rules of how value then gets distributed to the members of this ecosystem as value comes into it. So this is the Neureal code, this is the Neureal base. And what this is missing, interesting as I sent to you, is there's a cloud that kind of goes around this, because this ecosystem basically runs on the cloud. It runs on internet protocol. So that's where this Neureal network gets built. And I don't know, somehow it gets stripped out in certain programs, but just imagine that behind this. So basically you have all of these black hexagonals, octagonals, whatever they are. They represent computing resources within the Neureal network. The orange stars represent algorithms, chunks of intelligence code, typically algorithms that can be used to crunch data, and then the blue is the data that comes into the ecosystem. So what happens is you've got processing power that's part of the ecosystem. You have algorithms that get contributed or sold to the ecosystem. You have big data that gets sold or contributed to the ecosystem. Value gets brought into it. If somebody wants to get data crunched, value comes into it, money can come into it, turned into Neureal coin, and you can see we lost the Neureal coin icon there. So essentially, there's Neureal coin that's associated with all of these nodes. So as money comes into the ecosystem, imagine a backwards end here. That's a Neureal coin. You can see it's got a label there, but the actual icon disappeared. But as money comes in, it gets turned into coin. That coin then gets distributed to the processors who take the algorithms, crunch the data, and produce usable outputs. So those usable outputs then can be turned into, they can be sold, which can bring more money back into the ecosystem, and turned into Neureal coin and distributed out to everybody based on their contribution. Again, it's mapped according to the rules, which are in this transparent blockchain database, and it gets distributed based on what people contribute in terms of processing and algorithms and data. So this coding here shows, an individual contributes one or more computing resources to the Neureal network. This is a new resource that's joining the network. It joins the network by virtue of being associated with the Neureal code and being written into the Neureal ledger. Other individuals or entities contribute algorithms. That's this number 2. Big data gets contributed or sold. Not sold, but purchased its way into the network, because owner of big data or owners of big data want to have predictions, see patterns, see outputs from that based on what the algorithms can do in the processing environment. Number 4 is each CPU, GPU node on the Neureal network processes that data using the contributed algorithms, and that ultimately gets turned into usable outputs, number 5. So those outputs can then be sold. They can be sold back to the big data customers. They can be sold to someone else who's interested in that output in terms of predictions. If you're interested in particular predictions about the outcome of an election, there may be people who want to buy that, right? Or those outputs could just be kept in the environment, and additional algorithms and additional data and additional processors could use those outputs to create additional outputs, or aggregate multiple outputs to create something even bigger and more useful. So that's what this number 5 is. And as I mentioned before, as dollars are injected into the Neureal ecosystem, they're automatically distributed as Neureal coin to all contributors based on the quantity of their value contributed and based on the value distribution ledger and rules, which exist here in the blockchain. So that's I'm sorry for the missing pieces here that happened in the translation out of PowerPoint, but I think you get the idea. There is a link on the Hangouts. If you go to the Google Drive in promotions, there's a separate document that talks about this ecosystem and marketplace in more details, and all the visual pieces are there. So the net is 3 emerging technologies make Neureal possible. You've got distributed computing. This is grid type computing that's infinitely scalable, and it's peer-to-peer. and it's hooked together, you know, in the case of Neureal, based on the code that Will's developed and is developing to connect these computing resources together to allow joint processing. But what really drives it, what's the fuel of it, and that's a term I see more and more in the blockchain, Bitcoin base, especially in blockchain, things like Ethereum and so forth, is blockchain and cryptocurrency are the fuel, because they track the trust and the transparency, they create the ledger, they create the transactions, they create the little mini contracts, and dictate how value gets transmitted for all to see, fully transparent. And then cryptocurrency reduces the friction that normally moving around dollars with credit cards and PayPal and whatever, with this whole process that today skims money off the top of the whole thing and slows down the whole process. So it's these three areas that have come together, and it's really the nexus of these that allow something like Neureal to be built. So it's open source, scalable, and incentivized as an ecosystem. So, and the way we call it, in short, this creates a recipe for open, decentralized, infinitely scalable AI. Because ultimately, this thing can be turned into, it is AI. It is artificial intelligence. When you start doing these kinds of transactions at scale, with all this data, with all these algorithms, with all these processors, AI emerges, but it's open source. Everybody in the ecosystem is helping to determine what that AI becomes based on what they bring to it. So I just added this while we were talking earlier. So because I want to show that there are actual workable models that can so you ask, what uses all these predictions? What uses all this pattern recognition output that comes out in Neureal? Well, one huge example is Gold, which is this micro-lending platform that's based on predicting, using big data, using algorithms, using AI, whether or not somebody is likely to default on a microloan. And to billions of people who don't have banking, being able to borrow money, but being able to borrow money based on prediction of whether or not they can pay back. Neureal will power that. Neureal needs to power that. Freedom VR, I took a stab at it here, but using virtual reality experience that helps mitigate certain symptoms potentially, and to maybe predict health outcomes. Well, you may want to chime in on this. There's probably a lot you want to chime in on, but so I kind of created a page here. Let's talk about what are the things that are out there. And I know there's others, because I've seen them even in the Ethereum environment, the consensus environment, that will need to use prediction type data to really drive what they're doing. And I think we can sell this based on saying, this is the engine to help give you the predictions to drive your model. It's not just a crowd prediction environment, something like Augur, but it's actually running, this massive supercomputer that's crunching this data to create these predictions, probably much more accurate predictions. So I want to have an area that talks about that, because that's going to get that's important. So as participation in Neureal grows, it will evolve into an ever larger self-improving computing infrastructure. It will increase its ability to generate more robust and intelligent outputs, predictions, and pattern recognitions. The bigger it gets, the bigger adoption, the bigger the ecosystem, the smarter it will become, the more it will attract other algorithms, the more perhaps algorithms can be self-created within this AI environment and look at data in different ways. It has the potential to become a resource where people and institutions regularly consult it for predictions about the future and plug those predictions into whatever it is they're doing. And as Will and I and others have been talking about, in fact, I think it was Jordan who sort of coined this, but basically, we can ask Google anything about the present and the past, but with Neureal, we can ask it about the future. It will become this giant prediction engine. And eventually it could develop its own model of the world as it increasingly integrates new data into its current understanding of the world, a continuous, automated, iterative, improving environment. That's a self-improving AI. Interesting, scary, possible, but that's what it portends. And millions of people will have the opportunity to earn income as being part of this ecosystem, as part of this DAO. Anybody can contribute. So that's really it. Anybody can be a seer. Okay, you better do a lot of correcting now.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Because there's a lot to correct, but that's where the elevator pitch is going.
Okay, so it's good. It's interesting that this is not a simple step off. To me, it seems fairly straightforward because I've been learning about it I've been into it for years. Now, and not just this particular thing, but the whole ideas and everything from years and years and years. So it seems to me to be pretty straightforward, and that's where we come up with that. I really like the idea of the seer because, and I'm not sure it's like anybody can be a seer, because being a seer, implies that you learn to become a seer. Like that, it's coming from you as a person. The ability to be a seer. Whereas but this is it. It's not coming from you. It's coming from the AI. Yeah. Right. And so you have access to the seer.
You have access to it, but you may like I talk about here.
Yeah.
I think this is an important piece because this is the human element in all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is this human and machine-based creativity.
Yeah.
What do you want to know?
Yeah.
That it's one thing to be able to know anything, but if you're working in a particular area, if you're creating a particular business, if you're, even if you're into sports, whatever, what do you want to know? So you bring to this supercomputer, you bring what do you want to know? You ask the questions, and then hopefully you get the output so that you can be a seer in your own particular niche. It's like, so here's the computer, here's the world's largest supercomputer potentially. What do you want to know with it?
So it's from the point of view of like, what can you bring to other people?
Or bring to your business, or bring to a blockchain driven, it's like with gold. They want to know if somebody's going to default based on all this big data on patterns on what people do or not do in their lives and their electronic footprint, or even outside of it.
It's just a point of view thing. I guess I've been doing this for a long time, and I've accepted the point of view changes, I guess, like in my perception. It's like we were talking about the DAOs over there earlier. The thing about DAOs is that you're giving most people see it as you're giving the machine or the system or whatever some sort of a human status, like they're having a status of a human, which means that they can own something, right? Which is really kind of the basis of the fear of AI. And that's kind of where it comes from, is that people tend to anthropomorphize the machines. And so we are afraid because we think that we're giving them that status of a human being. And so we want to keep that for ourselves. And that's where there's a disconnect there between what I understand. Because in reality, the way I see it is that it's like us trying to say, we don't want to give the sun itself, the sun that shines up in the sky, we don't want to give the sun the power to make decisions and offer us a benefit, in our lives. And if you say it's almost like if you're saying, instead of seer, change that to sun, you're saying we all want to become the sun, which I think anyone can be the sun. The sun brings us benefit, but we don't want to be the sun. We want to gain benefit from the sun.
Sure.
And so the real system frees us from having to be the thing, the seer. It frees us from having to be the seer. We can gain, as individuals, we can gain benefit from an access to a seer that is not hard. Like the normal seers of the day, are the seers that we have now, the ones that are actually exist and that people are using, you don't know about. Like, you don't know about it. You don't know where to access that. It's through Google, right? But they're the ones using it. They're the ones using it and getting benefit, and then charging us whatever they want to charge us for access to that. And they have total control of that. But this Neureal can democratize that and make it so that everyone can make money and can be a part of that system and have access to those seers, basically, for a lot lower cost, because we're all supporting each other, as opposed to one central place and location where they can set the price,
right?
Have a monopoly or whatever, or maybe 3 big competitors or something, so anybody can be a part of it and add value. And Google's not going around saying, hey guys, I'll pay you to use your computing power, and you can help the system here.
Right. You're not saying we'll pay you to use your online behavior data, so because we're going to sell it to advertisers. It's like, yeah, they don't.
No.
And that's the beauty of these distributed autonomous, well, not even distributed environments, where you have a built-in incentive tokenization process, to where even at a micro level of contributing to an ecosystem, you get something back.
Right.
In the Google ecosystem, they maintain you get what you get back is all this access to information. And yeah, you do get some things back, but it's not a fair deal. We get access to these things, but we're never asked our behavior is actively mined, and we're not paid for that. A fair system would be, we get paid for agreeing to be actively mined.
Yeah.
And perhaps then we pay for some content in return.
Right.
It becomes a transparent, open, honest exchange. And the reality is that, again, when we talk about friction in the transaction world, that's not really hasn't been practical until now. But with blockchain and cryptocurrency, it's totally practical now. We can microtransact. I can microtransact to listen to somebody's song.
Yeah.
And so that you don't have these big entities in the middle who are skimming 80% of it to give a little bit to the artist.
Like, if everyone can be a seer, the only way I can see that could work is in the sense of, like, we are all made from stars. So here's the sun, we get benefit from the sun, but and we are the same star stuff, right? So but are we actually suns? I mean, you got to differentiate.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a real big difference between our body and the body of the sun.
That's right.
There
will be between us and the machines. So the machine, the real, there'll be a big difference between the machine and us. And so, we want access to that. We want, I should say me, because I want access to that massive machine. I want to be intimate with it. I want to be a part of it. I don't want to be the seer. I don't want to present myself as the seer. I want to be a part of the seer. I guess that's as close as I can get to it. I want to be a part of the seer, be integrated with the seer. But I may add value to that. I may do my own predictions, but that's really the differentiator between the prediction markets and Neureal. The prediction markets, everyone, the group, the crowd is the seer.
Right.
In a prediction market, the crowd is the seer.
But with this, the computer is the
seer.
Because it's not right. I mean, it's actually calculating the prediction, which has got to be a lot more accurate than crowd basing the prediction. I mean, if you have a big enough crowd, perhaps it's equal. I don't know.
Yeah,
but I think besides that, probably more importantly than that is that just like we use computers today to calculate stuff, whether it's we have our own computers that will calculate things for us, and it's useful.
Yes.
So this is it is a supercomputer, because you need a massive amount of processing power, memory, data, and good algorithms to come up with outputs that mean something, that are usable, right?
Yeah, you can still come up with stuff without that. I mean, the people who are doing it right now, like, there's people out there, figuring out who to hire based on some machine learning, looking at videos. Like they just do video interviews, and then the algorithm looks at the videos and decides this person's good to hire for you, this person isn't, and tells you, and then you can make a decision on that.
Right.
And that's beneficial. There's a whole company called HireVue, VUE, local here, started with David Radford, and one of the big data scientists that on the Ben Taylor is the main guy that works there. So that's what they do. That's their business model. So yeah, you don't need this massive computer across the world to get some value out of those kind of predictions.
Sure.
So the question is, what does Neureal give you? Like for gold, if gold wants to become worldwide, and they want to be able to predict the default rates of billions of people, you're going to need massive computing resources for that. And those resources do not exist right now. Not in a cohesive, collective way that you could afford, anybody could afford.
Right.
Any one entity could afford. Gold can afford it. Their company will not scale to billions of people without Neureal. It won't.
Right. And so again, it comes back to that, like in this slide, it's so, yes, I mean, a lot of the market is for what Neureal offers is going to be an alternative to a large institution paying for its own supercomputer, either its own or to lease it somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So it's an alternative to that.
Yes. So yeah.
And it's an alternative that potentially could be a huge financial difference in terms of the cost.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's once you start getting into how it works. I mean, if you just walk up to someone and say, we're working on a project that everyone gets access to a seer that can predict the future. People would be like, okay, what are you talking about? And they'd want to know more. So that, when you're, for doing pitches and stuff, it's like, there's the what, the why, and the how. I mean, the what or the why, the what and the how. So, when the why is, hey, we all want to know the future. We all can benefit by knowing the future. It's what we do as human beings. We predict the future. That's what makes us survive. That's why we survive that's why we have a brain. We have this big brain to help us predict the future.
It allowed us to outcompete other species.
Because we could predict the future.
We could see patterns.
That's the same thing.
Yeah.
Patterns in time is exactly the same as predicting the future. That's what it is. Predicting the future is recognizing patterns through time. That's what it is.
Right.
So when you say that, it's the same thing. So the best way to say that is just predicting the future, because you use pattern recognition to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to know where the game might be. If you can be where the game might be more often, then you're going to outcompete.
That's right. When you can aim your hand up and grab a banana on the tree, you can predict what angle your hand's supposed to go to get that banana you're going to be able to eat. So prediction is the thing that we do. We predict the future. That's why that's why we've survived. So, that's what this is. And yeah, he's probably saying something about it.
Yeah.
So, so my point is that, when you're trying to tell somebody about something, you can say something extravagant like that, and they'll be like, oh, okay, but that's what we're doing. That is what we're doing. And, on a massive scale. So then you can get into the what. What is it? You've talked a lot about.
Yeah, this presentation is very much about what.
Right. So the how is you've touched a little bit on, but not much. So the how is where someone like me comes in. How does that actually work?
Right. It raises a lot of how questions.
And so you haven't gone there yet,
No.
personally. So when you're trying to tell other people something, a lot of times you have to really understand it yourself.
Sure.
And so when you go down that path of creating, we've done this before. Me and Jordan and Brock and Joe, different people down the road over the last 2 years have gone through this same process you're going through. And we've come up with these things before. We come up with our own ideas, and we made the video that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody kind of comes to these same kind of their own conclusions about what it is, right? And that's what we do as human beings. So the idea is, the message is is that you want to be able to express that in as simple way as you can for what you get out of it. So I've been doing it for a really long time, and so I understand a lot of things about it on a lot of different levels. And I know that it's not very far along, but what we figured out, me and Jordan and Brock, last year or 2 years ago, what was pretty, was really good. We figured out a lot of problems and solved a lot of problems, but that doesn't mean that that's really what's going to happen into the future. So if we're talking about what it is, like what it is today, these are concepts and ideas that we came up with. We came up with a proof of concept, a prototype, which is like, hey, here's some of the things that we want to do. Here's some ways that we could do it, and they work okay. And they're not perfect yet, and they haven't solved all the problems. So it's at that stage. So you've got to talk about like what it is, what you want it to be, which to me, the very basic, the only thing that is everyone gets access to a seer. And everyone in the whole world in some way, right? And that's the main goal in the real, I think, the overriding thing for me. And I think can people jump on board with that? That's the question. Do other people want it? Is that a good enough message? Is that something that people want to be a part of? That's the real question.
Yeah. Well, and it's like there's the ultimate of what Neureal could be, mm-hmm. which is that. Mm-hmm. The ultimate is, if it comes to fruition, if it goes to scale, then it ultimately could be the seer that everybody comes to. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, until it gets there, what's the value proposition for, so the value proposition is that it can be this self-incentivizing, massively distributed computing environment. Mm-hmm. So if you contribute to the environment to do computing, then you can potentially be reimbursed, or not reimbursed, but potentially be rewarded for your contribution. Right? So it's like, do you want to be part of this? Because you could actually earn some livelihood as a result of it, as we're building this thing to the vision.
Yeah.
So then the other value proposition, so that's for maybe an individual, but maybe you have another value proposition for, are you an owner of big data and you need outcomes? You need to understand your data or come up with predictions as a result of your data and maybe a whole bunch of other data. We've got a computing environment for you. We're like selling a computer. Yeah. We're like the guys in the 70s, we're in that place, in the 70s where the head of IBM said, I see, a market for maybe a dozen of these things at most. When somebody said, hey, we can take processing power and memory and programs and data and show you, Mr. Company, Mr. University, information that you didn't already know. Mm-hmm. Predicting the future, right? And so this is a massive computer. This is potentially a massive computer. And so we have to say, hey, who are the clients of this potentially massive computer?
Yeah, so being a part of make money at it. You can be a part of it and make money.
You can earn some money in an ecosystem, or you can access, if you're a university with a huge amount of data and you're trying to understand something and you can't afford your own supercomputer, this is an alternative.
Well, you're coming up with a lot of different examples. But the question is we're really trying to condense all that down into, I think to get the message across simply, we need to condense all of those things into like a very simple like sentence that says like what it is. We've been trying to come up with something for a long time. We've done this in the past. You know, it's easy to get into a lot of examples, but it's really awesome to have like, you know, something that really kind of says it.
So this is the big what statement, right?
That's the big what.
So
why, how, and no, that's the what. Why, what, and how. So why, we have the why. That's what I'm talking about, the why statement. This is a good what. That's a good what.
That's the what.
And how.
Well, there's a lot to the how.
You can't usually do a one
right
how.
So we realize that, you know, that's part of what you have to explain, and obviously too, you have concepts, you have ideas of the how, but ultimately you've got to be able to get the funding to build the how.
That's right.
To be able to fulfill the what.
Yes.
To ultimately then fulfill the why.
Right.
You know, but
exactly.
Right now, as we sell it, as you try to get funding for it, the monetization, in terms of somebody looking at investing in this, is like, okay, you could be part of this ecosystem, this economic ecosystem of, right?
Yeah.
And this is going to be attractive eventually within an ecosystem, because you've got people who've got data, you've got people who've got algorithms. You can motivate people to create algorithms. You know, it's just like, okay,
that's all the stuff.
That's all the stuff.
What's the one word? Because it's not. So you kind of want to put that first. You want to say, like at the top here, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. You want it. This is you can do that on the second line. You need to move. This needs to be up here, and it needs to be the main thing, and it needs to say what you're trying to say right now. Is the why. So that has to be like the first thing people say. Then they can read this. They say, so for instance, it would be something like, do you want to be a seer? Yes. Well, Neureal provides an open source peer-to-peer supercomputer that can provide that for you. Okay, that would be the idea here. That would be the initial mental follow through that people could read in 15 seconds and see, right? Or whatever. Does that make sense? So what can you say for this that we put all of the things you just tried to talk about together into one thing? I don't know. You could be like,
well,
join. Have you wanted to? Do you want to be a part of an artificial intelligence?
Well, it's like
thing?
It's like.
Do you want to be a part of it? Do you want to gain value from it? Do you want to? You know, Why do we want? Because we are lazy. We want to have things done for us. We love the power of something that our intentions are fulfilled. So, you know, I want I want to know what the future is so I can make better decisions. I want to know if my heart's gonna, I want to know this is the why, because I want to know what the future is so that I can survive and I can, know if I'm gonna have a heart attack tomorrow, right? I mean, that's what I want to know. I want to know. I want to have access to a seer. I want a seer who can tell me the future so that I can make a lot of money. That's what people think. If I had access to a seer today, I could make tons of money. If I had access to the system, I could make money. I could be a part of it, which means that I could gain value from other people gaining value. So it's not like it's disappearing into this pot. Where some guy was, buying a huge island. Some dude's going to buy an island. It's not. Some dude's not going to buy an island. It's going to be a bunch of people contributing.
Right, and getting a little bit of value. But that's the whole value proposition of what's happening with decentralization and these distributed peer-to-peer organizations, is that you can provide value on so many different levels, whether it's a piece of your computer or your solar panel on your roof, or you running.
So the why is the value you get from it. It's the power.
Right.
So one thing I said that was on my interview that was pretty good, I thought, was, the intention. It's like you're connected to the future, so that all your intentions are It's not really I had something that was a different thing though. It's not really about. I mean, I talked about it on there, and that's kind of part of it, because once you have a machine that can predict the future, like it can do things, end up doing things for you, like it can be your agent. So that's a little bit different. So Neureal, just as it is just the seer part. So that's the part that says, hey, I can go out and I can figure out something to do. Like I can see, I can tell you when you look like you're gonna have a heart attack, and I want to know that, and that's the why. So that's the part of it. I'm not gonna like take you in a car and take you there. I'm not gonna like grab you and get you there. That's not what Neureal is doing, but it could be a part of that in the sense that it can help the car to drive, because it can help the car to see.
Well, it can predict.
It can predict whether if it turns here, it's going to make it or not.
Right. Or predict based on all kinds of.
What is this person going to do when they're, is this dog going to run across the street, or is he going to go that way?
Right.
What's going to happen in the future, so that I can drive, which is what we do when we drive. We predict what's going to happen. We don't just like watch what's actually happening. We think into the future. We say, well, that car looks like it's going to swerve over in my lane. It's driving kind of weird. And so we use that power. So this is the access to that and the expansion of ourselves and minds. That's a lot of stuff too, like you were doing. So the question is how can you say that? How can you, that thing that we want, that we all want access to the future, and we want it in a very cheap way, and we want to not pay one guy to have an island. We want for everybody to be a part of it, because the guy having the island is just not going to do that good of a job.
Right. It never works.
It never is as good as if you have people all over the world working on it.
Yep. So I get that. I get what you're saying is kind of having this big why, and we need to formulate that. So much of what I think about as we're like, okay, we've got to get this in front of some people who are going to care and hopefully contribute and want to help us build it and all that. And the why is good to have, but for somebody who's going to consider whether or not to fund,
it has to be why.
Well, it has to be why, but it also has to be.
It has to be a why. I mean, they have to know what they want, because if they don't even, you didn't. It's hard for you to even get that. Like personally, to recognize that this is what's going to do for you. Like you just barely kind of started thinking about the health stuff, and not everybody thinks about that and gets excited. That's the part where you're like, really, I can really have this. Otherwise, it's just some work. I'm just working on something.
Right.
I mean, it has to be there to give people that that excitement. Otherwise, it's just work.
Sure. Right. But the world.
It's something that sounds cool, and is neat. It is cool in and of itself. But if it helps me and it's beneficial to me, it's like, yeah, that's where I want to put my money now, because I'm going to get benefit out of it. And that's the real reason that people do it. So the why, what is it going to do for you?
Well, what it's going to do for people, initially, just like with any other enterprise, is like, are you going to can I make some money out of it? Can I be part of something where I can earn some money out of it?
That's a huge part of Bitcoin. That's why
that's why, the why of Bitcoin is so much bigger than the narrative of Bitcoin. The why of Bitcoin is to completely decentralize the world, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't necessarily lead with it.
It is the why, and why is making money.
Well, yeah, right. The more
the why for everybody with Bitcoin is
to make some money and to decentralize currency.
Well, it's to use
it's just to use it and
to money that is like way easier to use.
Okay, but that's what I'm trying to ratchet this down to, is like I want to ratchet this down to a why. Why would we even care about building something like this? Yeah. Yes, granted, to know the future about anything potentially is like, wow, cool.
And to make money.
And to make money. So that's why it's like, okay, here's why it's this ecosystem.
Yeah.
That people can basically contribute their computing resources, whether it's a server, a smartphone, a gaming machine, algorithms that they've built, or the phone book, data, and have it compute. And if that creates value, to get a piece of that value.
So what you say is we're getting up to it. So you say it's to help create, or to help you create a seer, help create a seer and make money doing it. Like help, like be a part of a seer, part of a system, and make money doing it. I like that, make your money doing it part, because that's what you're doing, and that's the incentive to be a part of it. So you're not only with Bitcoin, that's what it is. You're not only part of and creating a better monetary system, but you're also making money while you're doing it. It's not like you're just like freely giving out your time.
So it's make money by helping to create the world's most accurate prediction engine.
Yeah.
Which is the seer.
Yeah.
Which is to know that
you have access to the output of it.
Make money
and be able to predict the future. And be able to predict the future. Or have access to a system that predicts the future. Make money and create a system, support a system. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, that kind of a deal. So basically, that condensed down. I think those are the main things, and that's what would get most people into it. If we went up to Boom Startup up here and we explained it to them that if they buy some of the token, that it's going to be like buying stock, and that value is going to do an IPO, and they can trade it and they can own it. They're like owning it. That they would, like, once they finally understood that or believed it or whatever, they would do it, because like tons of people do in Bitcoin world. People collecting to that. Once that's out there, they're like, a guy just texted me, Twittered me. He's like, for Neureal, and he's like, well, how much do I invest? I want to invest. He wants to put money in right right now. He's like, where is it? Come on. He's like, how much is it? How much? Where can I trade it? I think he's asking me questions as if it's already there.
Yeah.
And he wants to jump in and start trading.
Yeah.
There's a ton of people, and once people get that, and they'll jump in and start trading. They did it with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And people invest.
Right.
Once the Genesis block is out there, they will invest, just like Ethereum.
Right.
The Genesis block, they created the Genesis block 4 months ago, and now it's $500 million worth of market cap. $500 million.
Yeah.
And that went from 100,000 to $500 million, or no, it was less than that. I don't know what it was, but it's $500 million now. $500,000 is the market cap. $500 million
is the estimate.
$500 million. No, it was the market cap. That's the market cap.
Well, market cap would be based on stock.
Yeah.
But that's based on coin. That's based on
same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Because of what Ethereum's ethers are trading for. Right?
Yeah.
Got it.
So there's
based on how many ethers are out there and what they're trading for.
Right. $500 million market cap.
Yeah.
And that happened in 4 months.
Yeah.
After they released their Genesis block.
And it comes back to what part of what I wanted to talk with you about is that I kind of had this epiphany over the weekend about what Ethereum is. Mm-hmm. Because they tout themselves as the world computer. Mm-hmm. It's like, because it's this massive distributed computing environment.
Yeah.
But the difference is, as we know, is Ethereum is sort of an operating system and application. It's a programming language to build applications on. Whereas
okay, we're back. Here, I thought I'd bring in this. So what were you saying now, Bill?
So essentially, both Neureal and Ethereum are massive global distributed computers. The difference with Ethereum is that it's applications. Mm-hmm. It's an environment you can build applications on. Neureal is a calculator. It's a massive algorithm supercomputer. And it's not to create applications, it's to create outputs, it's to create predictions, it's to show patterns.
Right.
Those things can feed into the applications and power the applications, which is, again, where a huge amount of the value of Neureal is, because it can power Neureal. I mean,
Right.
it can power Ethereum.
Right.
It will power gold, right? But it's that there are two different aspects of a computer. It's like the difference between Intel. Look at the computing world. Intel, CPUs, GPUs, chips, memory. It's the crunching. It's the ones and zeros that get crunched. That's it. Versus Windows, which is this operating system application environment that runs on the top of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So are we hit the time thing?
I don't know.
It's 5 o'clock.
Oh yeah, it is. But I really want to understand. I really want to make sure I'm understanding that, because I see it as we're two different world computers.
Yeah.
Ethereum is a world computer.
Mm-hmm.
So can Neureal be, but it's computing a different thing.
Yeah.
It's computing predictions, patterns, outcomes that feed into applications that become useful things.
Okay, so a lot of I just wanted to say, to be clear, that what you've been talking about, you've been trying to understand something that doesn't actually exist. It's a conceptual architecture. It's like walking into an architect's model that hasn't been built yet. And
sure.
And so you're trying to understand and explore that.
Sure.
And that's what you've been doing. You've been trying to understand and explore that. At the end of the day, once all this is built, most people won't care or know. They'll just use it.
Again, it's like with, if I use it, the analogy holds. It's like a CPU or a GPU.
Mm-hmm.
We don't care or know how those ones and zeros all get calculated to process it, but we know it's an engine in there.
You'll know it after it's built.
Yeah.
So once you live in the house, you'll get to know the house really well.
Okay, but it's basically it's doing the calculations. Neureal will do the calculations that will feed into all the things that I will actually use. I mean, yeah, I can say, the predictions can be very useful to me, so I guess I can use those. But for the most part, those predictions are going to feed into these bigger meta applications.
One thing that happens in the big data world right now today is that a lot of companies do not go and do big data. They don't do predictive algorithms. They don't use this stuff. And the reason why they don't is because they can't audit them. They can't look through and understand how it works. They can't say at the end of the day to the big shot guy, this is how it works. This is why we want to buy this, which is why we want to do it, because this is how it works. We can prove it out. We can prove that it's going to work. Okay. They can't do that. They literally can't. It's one of the few things you cannot engineer, like scientifically prove. It takes more time to prove it than to just use it. So what happens is the people who are willing to take the risk and willing to go down that path, okay, and put the money in and the time, those are the guys who are doing it, and those are the guys who are gaining the benefit from the system. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with Neureal, because that's what Neureal is about. It's about magic. It's about magic in the software. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but you have to do that with Neureal. You have to do that with AI. With these high-end AI algorithms, you can't prove that they work until you try them, until you actually use them, until you actually see how they work. Like you walk through the actual house once it's built. The only way to experience the house and to sign off on it and to pay the money is if you have to just believe.
It's a tall order.
It is. It is a tall order.
And
the people who don't do it are going to lose out.
But it's like,
and that's happening today, right now. Businesses are losing out because they're not willing to make that leap.
Well, that part's a bit beyond me. But hey, I've been able to. I can hang in the magic world to some extent. I can hang in the mystery. There is a certain component of mystery to a lot of things I think that are important.
Yeah.
But we move forward realizing that that we're going to accept that part's mystery. Yeah. But there's enough evidence that comes out in other ways where it reinforces our motivation to continue.
Yeah, that's right.
So I can do that. I mean, a lot of what I explained here in the deck is black box. If somebody told me, how in the heck does that work, and how do these nodes talk to each other, and how does the big data feed into the algorithms and this thing? It's all black box to me, man. I mean, I get it conceptually. But
you're gonna run into that because I can see
marketer.
I know. I can see that in your demeanor. It's like you're struggling to understand what's in those boxes. You're like, here's a black box. I really want to know what's inside of it.
But I'm not.
And you're like looking at it, pulling it apart. You're like, it's like,
where's that monkey listening?
Where's the crazy monkey?
I mean, but I've worked in technology marketing long enough to know I don't need to understand how the ones and zeros get crunched.
That's right.
I need to understand, what does it mean to somebody? What's the value? What motivates them to invest or to participate to evaluate that software? Because there's enough proof by virtue of showing outcomes and having other people who validate, who do understand the black box, to give me confidence to show up at a conference or a trade show or run an ad or do a webinar. And no, so I'm sort of like flying without a net, but you're the net, man. So
it's not just me, and it's everybody else who's interested. Like Max Goff, there's a good example. So it's going to be like.
It's anybody who understands the value of what blockchain and cryptocurrency can do in an ecosystem where if enough people contribute to that ecosystem, that it attracts value, and then that value gets distributed to the ecosystem. Everything you're working on, Brian's working on, I'm working on, Gold is working on, it's of that same, everything that's happening in the Ethereum world and the consensus world. That video I forwarded you of the guy who does consensus, basically showing example after example of here are practical applications of an ecosystem where a whole bunch of people contribute to the ecosystem, it generates value, and that value gets distributed and it self-fulfills. It becomes its own entity.
I think that's the kind of stuff on a pitch we need to talk about.
Well, and I've got a lot of that in there. I mean, a lot of that is, here's the ecosystem, people contribute. I mean, it's those basic building blocks. And I actually took slides out of that deck because that's a very abbreviated version, but I've got slides in there that go more into, here's what blockchain is, here's what cryptocurrency is, here's what a DAO is.
Yeah, but if I was an investor, I mean, and I would say, what I would think was what would get me, it seems like, would be like, oh, here's these guys who have a $500 billion market cap. Okay, I understand the word market cap. I know what that means. I'm like, $500 billion in 4 months, they went to a market cap, and this company doesn't exist. There's no company. How does that work? I want to get involved in that because I want to make money because I can see I can make money.
But we can tie into those things. That's the beauty of it. All we are is a different model, just like ride share.
Very, very important.
It's like you have ride sharing, you get ride sharing, you understand how that works in a DAO. Here's a computer, a massive distributed supercomputer, just like a massive distributed transportation network. We're a computer. That's the difference. And so
it's pretty simple when you get down to it.
So really, we're one of those. We're just another one of those, a very cool other one of those. Because it's like, wow, supercomputing. Who would have thought of that on the blockchain? I got ride sharing, I get house sharing, I get some of the things that Joe Lubin talked about from Consensus. Those kinds of sharing ecosystems. We're another one. That's what I'm trying to package.
It's not supercomputing in the general sense. It's more like supercomputing AI. It's supercomputive AI. I don't know the right exact terminology. It's AI that is based on supercomputing.
That's what I got here. An open peer-to-peer AI supercomputer powered by blockchain.
AI supercomputer.
It's an AI supercomputer. I mean, I don't get into the rest of the deck. I don't talk really about AI because that's it's a whole other thing. But ultimately, in the end, it is. And being a seer or artificial intelligence or superhuman intelligence, the potential for that is in this. But here's the ecosystem. Here's the pieces. Here's how blockchain goes in. Here's how cryptocurrency works. it's like ride sharing, but it's computing sharing
Yeah,
and algorithm data sharing. I mean,
it's AI sharing.
and it becomes, when it scales, the fact that it can be infinitely scalable is the part that turns it into AI.
AI sharing where you can make money.
And where you can make money. Everybody is participating, just like in any other decentralized autonomous environment.
Yeah.
You know, just like
our AI sharing where you can make money. I like that. We should put that.
AI sharing, or supercomputer where you can make money. Yeah, maybe I just.
I don't know.
Anyway, okay.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
we hash that hash.
Hash the hash. Okay. Well, hopefully that was a good one, and
Jordan's laughing.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. You got a thumbs up from Jordan. Cool. Okay, so we were ignoring him earlier because we can't read. That's too small writing.
But yeah, thanks for your feedback. I mean, yeah, we're just hashing this thing out.
Yes.
But that's how I want to pitch this, and that's how I want to help you pitch this, is because I think that was part of what was exciting about the consensus guide. It's like, okay, you got people standing on a stage and reading a litany of all the different ways this can be done. We need to be on that list.
Yes.
We need to. You know, let's get
Why
on that
are we
list.
not on that list?
Yeah, and can this thing run on Ethereum?
No.
I don't know. Maybe it does. So it's a different sort of thing. Maybe it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to run. You know, I mean,
parts of it you could but once you get into the high end GPU based stuff, it just can't. Like it can't run on Ethereum.
So
because the Ethereum uses the GPU to freaking do its mining, so you can't use it.
Right.
There's a technical chopping block right there. You know, that's just one. I mean, that's the what, or the how. The how part is you can't use it with Ethereum because Ethereum takes up all the processing power as a miner of the of your video card.
Okay.
And if you want to compete and get any good output from AI, you need to use your GPU.
Okay. Right. So, but it fits into this larger decentralization picture, which is, you know, that conference which is going on right now, which is talking about all these different aspects of decentralization. It fits into that narrative. Yeah. And people who are investing in that narrative.
That's why we need to get in front of Antonopoulos, and there's a lot of people out there who do know about it. You know, Cointelegraph, Tony knows about it. Jamie
Kaiser.
Redmond, Max Kaiser. You know, Carl Gray. There's you know, some fairly.
Sharpin know about it? He kind of knows.
Yeah, he knows about it. He hasn't quite picked it up yet. We need to really sit down and talk with him. But you know, we're gonna try to get it out there to all the other people.
If I can have that sit down with him in Austin, and we can refine this.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows enough about all this decentralization stuff to go.
It's gonna be easy. You just say AI on the blockchain.
AI on the blockchain.
What's his name is gonna do it too. I mean, Johnson.
Hey, sending up the storage guys are here.
They're here?
To meet you.
Oh, well, let's put them on the thing here. Hey, come on in. You guys made it.
James.
Will. You look like your pictures.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Bill.
That's a good thing.
John.
Hi, John. Good to meet you.
Yeah.
James.
Hi, James. Bill. Good to meet you.
Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Bill.
Good to meet you as well.
Yeah, Bill and Will.
We're just having,
So where this is live right here. This is a hangout on air. This is the strings thing here. So we're at the end of we're just finishing up a real cast, hangout on air. So
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I think we got like
perfect.
2 other people. You say hi to Jordan. We know he's
yeah. So everybody say hi. We can close it down though. We'll
Jeez,
close
I
it
can't
down.
let the internet know what I look
I know. Imagine that.
blown the cover, man.
All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. This has been a good one. So we'll see you next time.